Well, hello there, friendos. How are we doing today? I hope you're doing absolutely wonderful today, and I hope that God is blessing you in all of your endeavors, and I hope that you're finding a good deal of peace and serenity in your everyday life, and also maybe just hopefully finding some time to laugh and, jump up and down and do silly things. Because sometimes doing silly things is good for the soul. Soul good. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about a few different things. I'm going to try and keep this sermon a little bit shorter today because I feel like I do have a tendency to ramble and rant, and sometimes I just need to shorten up what I'm saying, I think, a little bit. But for right now, let's start with a prayer. And just to let you know, we are in a slightly different area here. I went to the Church of Ella because I don't know, I just like this place, and I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a mix up. So for right now, I'm just going to turn and face this archway. All right, and let's say a little prayer. O sweet divine mother, please guide us. Guide us from the unreal to the real. Guide us so that we may always remember you. Guide us so that in every step we take, we get closer to you. Guide us so that our hearts may be nourished with love. Guide us so that our hearts may be a place where the seeds of mercy and forgiveness are planted. Guide us so that we may always be seeking to serve and to be forgiven and to forgive those around us. Guide us so that we may always feel your light and love within us. Thank you, sweet Divine Mother, for everything you have given us. Om Cream Hakalikayi Namaha. Okay. So, today I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of spiritual independence and where paths come into things. I think that we can all gain a good deal from remembering the ancient peoples that have come before us and remembering spiritual teachers that have come before us, and maybe even having spiritual people that we look up to and want to emulate. But I also think that ultimately, one of the glorious things about the spiritual path is that in some way we all have our unique little bits of the path. We all have our moments where we're walking together with, lots of people, and then we have our moments where as we're walking we descend into like maybe a little bit of a peaceful grove or something like that, or maybe even a turbulent grove with lots of scary things in it. But we all have our moments where we're kind of going through, and we go from being surrounded by people who understand our experience to being sort of alone in a sense, and sort of being uh, unsure where we're going and things like that. Especially early on, there's lots of moments where we're not like 100% sure what we're supposed to be doing or why exactly. But one of the beautiful things about that is that's actually the moments where you're supposed to turn back to God and, really reach out to her or, him if you feel so inclined, or, you know, reach out to just God without any gendered ideals there, and really embrace it and be like, okay, I don't know where I'm going, I don't exactly know what I'm doing, please guide me and please help me. And sometimes you'll spend a while in a little bit of turmoil and turbulence, but if you center yourself on God and always come back to God, you'll find that it's very easy to bring yourself back to being peaceful and understanding. And sometimes it's good to let go. Sometimes we get too comfortable in our little communities. We spend too much time talking to folks around us, and we don't spend enough time, going inward and trying to figure out, what is it that makes us tick, and what is it that makes us tick with the universe. If the universe is a great big old clock full of ticking parts, then where is my tick a going? You know what I mean? Sometimes you gotta stop and think about that sort of thing, and stop and sort of let yourself catch up to, and let yourself, like, have a moment to breathe and absorb the serenity and the peace that comes in the quiet. Sometimes you need a little bit of that in your life, and it's not always just rushing forward trying to do, whatever it is that we think is going to bring us comfort or security. Sometimes we just have to sit with ourselves for a little bit and sit with the nature of being for a little bit and really contemplate. Sometimes, and this is part of the reason why it's so good to have a meditation practice, is to have those moments where you're just in peace and you're just away from it all, and being able to like focus inward is very important to have. It's very important to have those moments in your life where you can really sit down and focus. And sometimes what you should do is, rather than just reading a ton at once. I know some people who really like to, they're very voracious readers. They like to go through like everything in whatever their faith tradition is, and they kind of like go through tons of hadith at once, or they go through tons of the Bible at once, and that can be good. But what you should do is occasionally really let yourself dwell within those texts. Like just read a little bit at a time, and like maybe choose like a hadith, or choose like a Zen koan, or choose a little bit of the Gita, or like a whatever at once, and just really sit there and focus on it, really, absorb what it means, and really give it your time and your effort, and try to understand it, and try to apply it, and try to see, how does this apply to my everyday life? How is this important for me on my spiritual journey? It's not all about rushing forward to get to the next point. Sometimes we really need to dwell and understand why we're at the point we're at, and understand what is this moment trying to teach us. Every moment is the present moment if you really stop and think about it, right? Like that's the one moment you really got. And sometimes you got to sit there in the present moment and just dwell on it. And sometimes you got to sit there and dwell not just within the present moment, but within like a specific scripture, or sometimes you gotta dwell within like what's going on with me right now. And sometimes what you really need to do is just dwell in, emptiness, or in another sense, fullness. Sometimes you need to dwell within existence, and understand what's really going on. Like kind of focus on uh, just the sort of quiet and the peace and the bliss that you can find when you really slow down and let things kind of go by instead of dwelling on them as well. And there are moments for each of these things, and it takes a while to kind of learn when you need to do what. But you can learn it, and it may take you a bit of time. Maybe you need to find a teacher, maybe you need to find someone who will help guide you and lead you to your own particular method. Sometimes it's really good to, you know, find a method that you can use. Maybe you're, for instance, really into like Zen Buddhism or something like that. And sometimes it's really good to sit down and really absorb what that path means, and where that path can take you, and just sort of uh, let it wash over you, and try to understand it from the path's own perspective as much as you can, before you open up to your own perspective and your own attempts to understand it, and your own attempts to practice it and apply it in life. Sometimes you gotta really take a step back and like really look at the way things are presenting and going, and just really think before you act. And sometimes, although this is not necessarily the most popular thing to say, sometimes you don't need to act at all. Sometimes simply dwelling there and being within the present moment and being alive is enough to make events better. Sometimes you just need to sit in the rain rather than, complain about being wet. you know, there's always chance to learn in every moment, and to really try to appreciate what's going on and why it's going on and where you're going. And but there's also times when, like as you're going along the river, you don't need to think about where you're going on the river. You just need to kind of enjoy the little ride, enjoy your little boat ride with all of its a little bit of tumbles and things like that. Sometimes you need to get out your oar and push it in a certain way, but a lot of times you just kind of need to sort of try to appreciate the moment for what it is, and not like try to force your own understanding on the moment. a lot of times we like to try and force the present moment to be something that it's not. We think that we should be doing things differently, or we think that things shouldn't just be going the way they're going. They should be going a way that we want them to go. And, there is certainly times when you're going to need to go out of your way to understand and do things, or if you're looking for a particular result, maybe sometimes you need to really kind of force your way to get there. But a lot of times, it's almost more like quicksand where, you should try to resist it less and find the way that accords to the way things are going on and find your way through it. If you're trying to travel on the river, it doesn't make sense to try to paddle against the river. You paddle with the river, or, you paddle with the river until you get to a point where you can open up your sail and then you get to go real fast. You know, this is just like a reminder to like really settle down and don't get so worked up about things. Don't go so crazy about things. Sometimes things are just going to happen and you're just going to have to deal with them. And phrasing it like deal with them is not even really the best way to. Sometimes things are just going to happen and you're just going to have to be there and, look at it and be like, okay, this is what's happening. That doesn't mean that you have to be upset or happy or really anything. You can just be there in the moment and enjoy them. And some of us are the kind of people that really have that quote unquote grind set, where something's always kind of ticking away in the back of our minds, and we always have to have something we're doing to be productive, and we're always trying to be productive. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I've met a decent number of those people, and I don't really ever think they're very happy. I mean, maybe they are, and it's just like a personal thing. But a lot of those people I meet just seem like they're only going from one thing to the next, and like like sometimes you just gotta enjoy where you're at, and not everything has to be a game to be productive. Not everything has to try and benefit you or gain you in some way. Not every single thing is like some sort of product or some sort of idea that you need to push forward. Sometimes you're way better off if you just engage and relax with things. And yes, it is true that there are moments where you do maybe need to, in your everyday life, push forward a little bit more, but you can push forward without having to be in this perpetual state of anxiety and this perpetual state of always struggling to get closer and closer to some end goal. Now, of course, that sounds a little funny when you consider that the prayer I started this with, it says like every step of the way, guide us to get closer to you. I think God's always worth getting closer to, but I think that um, we'll all have much more of an individual way of getting there than we realize, and if we truly practice in the best way, and if we truly just let things happen and absorb our mistakes and realize that there are moments where we can learn and moments where we can have, benefit, and we can choose to take lessons away from them and choose to attempt to understand why XYZ is happening rather than, forcing our own narrative or our own understanding onto every single encounter we have. I think we'll be a lot better off. And sometimes I think we forget that as we're wandering these paths and as we're sort of going from place to place. We always want to try and force things to look a certain way. We're always trying to force, our own particular idea of happiness. But I've personally found that happiness can come to you pretty much wherever you are, provided you let it come to you. And sometimes when you're sitting there trying to force everything to be a certain way or to work within a certain way, you're actually pushing that happiness away. And sometimes what you need to do is just relax, take a deep breath, and dwell within the present moment. And that's just kind of what I wanted to say for this week. So I'll end with a little prayer facing this gateway, because why not? O sweet Mother, please grant us peace. Grant us understanding and grant us the knowledge of the way so that we may, be in the present moment, so that we may be with you in the present moment, so that we may be in peace in the present moment. Guide us so that we may always remember you and always come back to you. Guide us so that we may always be a beacon of light and a beacon of love onto the world. Please, Mother, let us forgive those around us. Let us grow to be at peace, and let us grow to always be full of mercy and love in our hearts. Thank you, Divine Mother, for everything you have given us. Om Krim Hakalikai Namaha. Okay. It's gonna be a little bit of a shorter one today, but I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and I hope that you all find many blessings and find a lot of peace and understanding in your heart. And remember, God bless. Thanks for everything. Bye bye.